Welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, the viewer, to get a closer look at our local candidates as we discuss issues that are important here in our community. We've taken questions from social media, by email, we've talked to local groups, and we've gathered some interesting topics to discuss. This is all leading up to the general election, which is on November 8th, and we would encourage you to go vote at that time. But first, it's important to get informed, and that's why we're here today, to talk to our guest. It is Chris Quire, and he is our current sheriff, and he's running for re-election. So let's welcome the sheriff. Hey.
Nice to be here, thank you.
Good. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to come here and talk to us. If for some reason, because you are the current sheriff, but if for some reason some of our viewers aren't familiar with who you are, I just want to give you the opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you've decided to run for re-election.
Sure. First, I want to thank the plant board and the viewers for participating, because I think it's important that you know who's on the ballot and what they're about. You know, we've all been guilty of going in there and you just pick one because you're not sure who they are or what they're doing. So I think this is a great thing that you all are doing, and thank you to the plant board and the viewers. But I've been the sheriff since 2019. Prior to that, I was on the Frankfort Police Department, and there I started out as the meter maid. So I worked my way up as sergeant, lieutenant, and all the way to captain before I was elected to sheriff. I actually started out as a bailiff and a road deputy before I went to the city in 2000. And before that, I was doing the meter maid stuff. So at that time, it was Sheriff Ted Collins, and he gave me the first shot at going to the academy. So I stayed there a couple of years, and then I went back to the city, and here I am now as sheriff. So it's been a nice career. My law enforcement career, I'm hitting around 24 years now. And I feel like the last 4 years, I've made some, good decisions for the sheriff's office. We've done a lot of community policing, and I want to keep building on that and make a sheriff's office we can all be proud of.
Okay. And that's why you're running for re-election?
Yes.
Okay. So what do you think is the most important role of the sheriff's office?
It depends on who you ask. But, during November to April 15th is definitely the $50 million in taxes you have to collect. Right. Disperse some money to the 7 tax districts, and then, you reconcile. Everything has to be at zero. We don't have longs and shorts where if you get really close, you just write it off. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be to the cent. So, that's a really important task that you have to get right. People expect it. They want clean audits, and, of course, the tax districts want their money, and they want it to be right. Mm-hmm. The other piece to this is, we're now into a school safety role. That's like a whole division.
Yeah.
We actually have 7 deputies that are working in the schools, teaching there, protecting, the county schools. And that's a pretty big task at hand. And of course, we have our law enforcement side on the regular calls. We somewhere around 40,000 calls if you count what we do at the office. So law enforcement has definitely become more than a collateral duty of the sheriff like it once was.
Okay, so that's countywide policing.
Yes.
That you're doing. Okay. What do you think is the most important skill for being a good sheriff?
I think communication. I do believe that the partnerships I made while I was at the city and even the ones I've built on here make a big difference. Because when you want things, I can remember 4 years ago when I was saying I wanted body cams and all this stuff, and there's like, well, what if you can't pay for them? Mm-hmm. There's always a way if you know enough people to get what you need to make your office run efficient. But I would say communication and partnerships really important.
Okay. Well, looking back on your last 4 years of sheriff, what do you think has been the highlights? Accomplishments?
Well, I would say that I've hired good staff. I got a really good team now. We got rid of some people that didn't need to be here. That's never fun, but once you do it, it's kind of like flipping a light switch off and on. That's a big difference, like the next day. And you find out really quick that they had a small fan base anyway. Our fleet is really big difference. When I got here, it was sad that the condition it was in. I started the cycling program where we trade them in because used car values are so high, and when they get close to being out of warranty, we're trading them in and getting almost what we paid for them after you drive them 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, 30% of our fleet is now electric. We have 9 electric EUVs that you'll see out in the schools, and couple admin folks like myself drive them and all the school deputies. So that's been good for our fuel and maintenance because you think there's no oil changes. Really, all you have is tires and brakes, and they have a really good warranty. And, you know, we're getting charging stations put in the high school and the middle schools, and we also have them at the office. So, you know, the charging issue, once we get all these chargers out, we'll be in really good shape with our electric fleet.
Yeah.
And, you know, probably the most accomplishment, I feel like we've diversified the office now more so than ever.
Okay.
7 African-American deputies, 2 Hispanics, and we have 5 females that work within the office and the courthouse. So we're a really diverse agency.
Okay. What would you say distinguishes you from your opponent?
Well, the big thing is I have a proven record over the last 4 years. You know, everybody wants to be the sheriff, it seems like. You talk to police officers, they ask you, are you running again? Because when you don't want to run, I want to be the sheriff. But I look at people's past. I mean, if you've been a good police officer, you worked hard, you can run for office, but it's a popularity contest at the end of the day. If you have a lot of partnerships, friends, you've been good in the community and active, you have a shot. But, you know, you can't live in a shell your whole life and come out all of a sudden and expect everybody to vote for you.
Okay. What would you say is the most pressing issue or need facing the sheriff's office right now, and how do you propose to address it?
The biggest need for the office, I feel like, you know, there's always a big need, but I mean, we've checked off a list. We've had a really good year with our fleet and our equipment, but probably just to keep building on, you know, for example, our body cameras. We're on our 3rd upgrade and going on 4 years. I mean,
Okay.
it's like a cell phone. The technology changes.
Yeah.
There's always something better. So we're just going to have to continue to have support with our budget so we can have the tools, you know, the modern tools that we need.
Yeah.
Which there's always something new and better, and they don't last long because they go through a lot. You know, they're clipped onto you. Oftentimes they get knocked off or
Right.
they fall off. You're out in the weather. So we just want to keep having the best cameras we can, best weapon system, best computers and vehicles.
Okay. All of that takes money.
Yes.
So, we've seen in the past how important it is for the sheriff to have keen oversight of the office's finances. What is the current budget for the sheriff's office, and what experience do you have with large budgets?
Well, based on the last 4, of course, I did the first budget. The court allowed me to at the end of 18 going into 19. So this year will actually be the 5th budget that we did. And, you know, we get audited for our fees account, which incorporates all your donations, their account, everything but your tax account. And then we get audited on our tax account. So everything we touch is audited in 2 different audits. So I've had 2, 4, 6, 7 audits so far, and we've had 0 findings, and they've been clean. So I think that record should, you know, prove that we can handle the money. And I've had a lot of good help along the way with senior advisors and friends and mentors. And, you know, a lot of times you have to call to ask questions and see what you can do. But now that I've been here going on the 4th one, I'm getting comfortable. It comes more natural.
Sure. Okay. Well, we talked about maybe the pressing needs for the office. Can you tell me, is there one crime-related issue that needs an immediate plan of action from the sheriff?
We're doing really good on drug enforcement. We actually have a deputy assigned to the DEA task force for the first time ever, and he's done a lot of good work. That brings in federal resources when we need them for bigger cases. And we also have a deflection with the city before, you know, lots of times if you're working a case, you may need to talk to other agencies to make sure, because you don't want to be sitting in front of a house in the middle of the night and they're sitting around the corner, you don't know. So that's where deflection comes in. And
Okay.
we often will work stuff together, or at least we check with each other so everybody knows what the other one's doing.
Okay. Do you have any special programs that you're dealing with, like the opioid issue? Are there certain things that you all are doing specifically to deal with the drug problem here in Frankfurt?
We just try to stay involved and, you know, go to groups and meetings anytime we're asked. And with our deputies in the schools, we actually brought back the DARE program last year because it had been absent for 4 or 5 years, I guess. So we're hoping if we can get into the elementary and the middle schools and then come back again in 9th or 10th grade, it just gives the information to the students, and they know that we're there every day checking on them, watching them, and I think that over time it's going to make a difference with their being back.
Okay. How do you handle mental health and substance abuse calls? And is there a call to be more involved in that?
Yeah, I mean, when you say what's your biggest problem, often it's drugs, mental illness, and then homelessness, and often they run together.
Okay.
But I mean, this is a community problem. It's a nation and a world problem. If no one person has an answer, we're just going to have to keep working towards the common goal of helping people, providing more help. Often, all we can do is take you for a mental evaluation to Eastern State. Often it's 72 hours max, and then you're right back where you started.
Okay.
So, we're just going to have to continue to put our heads together and work together and see what we can do to better it.
Okay. How do you define excessive force, and how will you hold your deputies accountable for their actions while on duty?
Well, I think anybody that's kept up has seen that, I think I fired more deputies than I've ever thought I'd have to, unfortunately. But that's the one thing I can't tolerate is if it's truly excessive force, you don't need to be on our team. I mean, it's happened, well, at least once the video was released. So,
Are body cams beneficial to that? Are they more of a benefit to the police officers or to the victims?
Well,
no, I won't say the
it
victims.
can benefit whoever's wrong.
Right.
I mean, if we need the evidence to build the case, that's great.
Yeah.
But if we're doing wrong, it certainly doesn't do us any favors. But
Yeah.
it's transparency. I mean,
Okay.
we have monitoring cameras in our vehicles, dash cameras and body cams, and as long as I'm sheriff, we'll have cameras. I think it's very important. If you want public trust, you have to be able to go back and look and review and see what's happened.
Okay. Well, what steps have you taken to ensure that deputies are properly trained, and how do you hold them accountable to their training?
We do more training now than ever. We do bias training, ethics training. We've trained with the city on a couple group. We brought folks in on a national level to help us train. And also, we do in-house trainings in our roll calls, and we have a couple folks that are really good on the range and things. And we've added to our less than lethal weapon system. We now have pepper ball guns in addition to tasers, ASP, and of course we have pepper spray. So, I mean, we hope that you can go on that force continuum and you have all these choices before you ever think about hitting deadly force. It just depends on the scenario. But the good thing about the pepper ball guns is you have a much further distance than a taser.
Yeah.
If someone was doing whatever,
Yeah.
you don't have to get real close to hit them with the pepper ball gun.
Okay. Noted. Recently, we had a bomb threat at one of our high schools, and then through the country we see school shootings, and it's scary for parents, and it's got school districts and law enforcement looking at ways to ensure that schools are always safe. What plans do you have when it comes to school safety, and what policies have you enacted or do you plan to enact?
It's continuing to change, and I would like to hope that we have one of the best programs out there. The great thing is our partnership with the schools. We actually went from 3 deputies. You only had them at the high schools last year.
Right.
In the academy. So we have 6 deputies. We cover the high schools, middle schools, and the academy, and our 7th guy is teaching there. And what he also does, if they ended up making an arrest with a juvenile or an adult, he will transport that person so they don't have to leave the school. We try to have those deputies stay at the schools, and then the extra 6th guy does the elementary schools. And the goal would be to have them in every school, all 13 locations. But I can assure you if something were to happen, we're going to respond swiftly, and we're going to take the proper action. They have the equipment they need, the training, and you got a lot of guys there with a lot of experience.
So those are school resource officers who are deputies in the sheriff's office.
Right. And what happens, we've negotiated a contract with the school board, and they pay their salaries back and reimburse us for certain things.
Okay. Do you ever see a scenario where maybe those that is covered by the fiscal court?
They actually agreed. First off, I got to thank them again because they bought 6 new vehicles, and it was around $200,000.
Yeah.
Because when we hired the 3 new ones, I said we're going to have cars, and if we give them our old cars, all we're going to do is be broke down because they're a reason. There's a reason they're pool cars because
Yeah.
they're like on their way out.
Right.
And then they also agreed to pay one benefit package. But luckily, the 6 that we hired are all retirees. So
Oh.
right now, we're okay. But, there'll come a time, you're not always going to have retired folks that apply.
Right.
So they agreed to help the school by paying one of the benefits, which is quite a bit of money.
Okay.
And I just think the program's better now than it's ever been, and I want to keep building on that.
Okay. Do you feel like the sheriff's office is transparent enough, and how would you better communicate with the public on the activities the sheriff's office is doing and the good work of the staff?
We use our Facebook page a lot to put out community events and things, and then a lot of times the newspaper pick it up, and the news channels are often here. So I feel like the message gets out, but we're doing a lot of things, and we don't always tell people what we're doing, but a lot of times the group or whoever you're helping will share it for you.
Right, yeah.
And
Okay.
that's our hopes. I mean, in an elected office, sometimes it looks like that's all you're doing is trying to promote, whatever you're doing, try
Yeah.
to get votes. So I'm careful of that, but we want people to know what we're doing.
Sure, sure. Well, I am out of questions for you, so I'm going to let you look at that camera there and speak directly to our viewers and tell them why they need to vote for you on November 8th.
Well, I'll say not very often does an elected official go back and look, but I found this brochure that we passed out 4 years ago, and I was reading the 8 things on here, and I can tell you that we've accomplished them all. So that's how I judge someone. If they do what they say they're going to do, and every 4 years I get a report card, and the only way to know how I'm doing is to see how the election goes. So I want to first off thank you for watching, and I want to ask you for your vote. But I'm going to go down through the list, and you can be the judge, because most of this stuff we've already talked about in our conversation. But it just lets you know I didn't forget my campaign pledges, and I will continue to build upon what we started. And I want a sheriff's office that we can all be proud of.
Sure.
Sheriff's deputies spend more time with community policing, building relationships with members of the communities. I checked that off. A sheriff should empower staff professionally and personally. Check that off. We need to reduce cost redundancy and by partnering with KSP, Frankfurt Police, and other agencies. And I'll add to that, for the first time ever, I talked about our DEA guy, but we also have 2 of our deputies that go out with the city SWAT. It's called TRU, Tactical Response. So instead of having our own, we actually have 2 of our deputies go out with them, train with them, have the same equipment. So it's not a joint SWAT team, but we go with them, and if, we need that asset or resource out in the county, we have it. So that was a big accomplishment
Sure.
also. Body cams will raise the professional standards, ethical conduct of deputies. We have body cams and dash cams now. And it also appointing special deputies limited to those who are properly vetted and trained. All of ours are previous police officers or military. So every one of our deputies that are special, I think we only have 3 or 4. I'd have to look at or write it down so I can remember. But they've all are retired police officers, or they had Marine Corps training and different trainings in law enforcement. Also, we partner with faith-based organizations, with law enforcement. We work, I'm sure you see us at churches on the weekends when they have service. A lot of them hire us security to either do traffic or be inside the church for security, or both.
Yeah.
And lastly, the sheriff's office should be held to a higher professional standard and accountability. And what that is a financial or fiduciary duties. I think with our clean audits, we stayed in budget, paid our bills on time, we met all our financial obligations, which is not easy to do. I mean, it's a lot of moving parts when you're handling that much money, and you have to stay on it. So I'm proud to have checked those off. Not every elected official could say that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I will continue to do what I say I'm going to do and make the best decisions I can.
Okay.
Thank you for watching.
All right. And do you want them to vote for you?
And please remember to vote for us. There will be early voting, but of course, November 8th is the election day. So I look forward to getting that behind us, and hopefully we'll have a big victory. Thank you.
All right. Well, we sure do appreciate you coming by, talking to us and answering these questions that we've had. And I appreciate you, our viewers, for tuning in and watching and getting informed, because that's what we're all about here. It's time to go vote on November 8th. When you're done voting, you go home, turn it on Channel 10. We'll have the live election returns coming to you from the county clerk's office. It's election season, so we're getting informed, and then it's time to go vote, because your vote is your voice, and I encourage you to use it.